All right, so welcome to another live stream here. We're going to go ahead and connect. So we'll give it here a second and we're going to get started. Today's topic is focusing on Trading Journal. It's a live build out and we're going to be using Notion when it comes to building out our trading journal. Now, you could use a lot of other tools when it comes to trading journals. There's Airtable, which I've used in the past. It's very friendly, and we'll go over some of these tools. You can use Evernote. I've used Excel. I mean, you name it, I've used it. I've used it pen and paper, which I find works really well at the beginning. Is if you're using pen and paper, it works fantastic because for a lot of people, pen and paper is just much more natural. So definitely that's what we're going to be going into today, is just looking at trading journals and how to set them up. And I'm going to use Notion because I had a lot of requests on this as a freebie. You know, I did a video about it a while back, and I guess some people just struggling to kind of create it on their own. So we're going to go ahead and dial into this and work on it together. And if you have questions, just let me know. I'm fairly good with the software side and so forth. So if you have questions, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. I can't do too many crazy complex formulas for you, but we'll try and help you out. And yeah, ultimately, I mean, the goal is, you know, if you're trying to build a trading journal, it's just kind of understanding like what trades are working well, which trades are not working well. So that way you can kind of improve and kind of go from there. So anyways, that's really my main goal and focus for today's session. So I want to welcome you guys. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully we can knock this out in about like 45 minutes or so. It shouldn't be too bad, but if we start layering multiple journals and interlinking relationship databases, then it could take a little bit longer. So it just depends how in-depth you guys want to go. So anyways, so let's get started. If you don't have Notion yet, you may want to go ahead and get it. Let me go ahead and start kind of going here. So welcome to everybody. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. So there we go. So here we've got Notion. So this is Notion right here. It's just basically like, think of it like Evernote, but it's got a lot of other power behind it. If you're not signed up for it, you can do it. It's free. Just go to Notion.so. And what it allows you to really do is you can kind of transform your data into different like paragraphs. It's really, or areas, it's really confusing at the beginning. Like this thing confused the heck out of me for probably a good week. But then I kind of got it. So think of like these workspaces or these areas as like little folders. And then within these folders, there's like blocks and you can just transform your content. So if you think of your content as being just like liquid water, that's kind of really what it's about. It's just like the content is water. It can be a gallery, it can be a database, it can be just text. So you can really transform it into a lot of stuff. And that's really what we're going to do with it, is we're going to really power through it there and just convert it into a lot of cool stuff. Okay, so let's kick things off. If you have any questions at the beginning, feel free to write them in and let me know. Otherwise, we'll kind of get started on building out a trading journal. So here's kind of like a quick testing one. I created a workspace here and went ahead. I'll go ahead and put like the live chat up here if anybody has questions later on the replay. And we'll kind of get started. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to move this over a little bit. I'm going to create kind of a new area here. So I will add a page here, which is basically like a database or folder. So I'm going to call this like a trading journal. Okay. So this will be our trading journal. One thing with this is a very visual area. So you can add icon and it's really icon heavy. So we'll just go with like a notebook. So there we go. So there's our trading journal. Now in here, you can have multiple workspaces or areas within this as well. So that makes it kind of interesting. And this is where you can see the depth of it. And there's a few ways to go about this. It really just depends. If you want to go with like just one trading journal, that's fine. But what you can do is actually have a couple of different things happening here. So I can have 2 or 3 different trading journals and I can have them linked up into each other. and then have kind of like a summary or results of like my 2022 year, which is a bit more complex. This is known as like a relationship or relational databases. And I'll show you how to do that maybe towards the end if you guys really want to get into that. But other than that, you know, you still got to start with the basics. So the way to kind of start this off is Notion uses a lot of slash commands, but if you hit enter a bunch of times, I go in and let's say I create a database, or I create a table, I guess, table of contents right here, table database inline. And it creates like a little database right there. And I can have like, let's say here is all my Iron Condor trades. Then what you can do is I can go in a little further and say, again, there's another table created inline. And then here is like my vertical, or let's say my long investment trades. So I could do something like that. And then I could create another database, and they could all like link up together. So doing it this way is kind of a nice way of working through it later on, or thinking about where you want to go and where you want to take it, right? So if you're looking at linking them, then you have to think about that in the long run. But for now, let's start with kind of like some basic stuff. So I'm not going to do anything crazy with options yet, because that could just make it more confusing with the software. I'm going to go ahead and do just like long investment trades. And the way we customize this is you kind of have to understand like what data do you want to track, and like why do I really want to track it? It's like, what's the point of tracking this data? It's really so that you could improve them in the future, or just kind of have a logbook. For me on the option side is really what I'm looking for, the improvement. The long investments, it's kind of like you put it on, and then it's going to be either a hit or a miss. And then you might tweak that trade if it's not performing well. So let's say with this long investment, I'm just going to start, you've got title or a name. I'm not going to do anything like that yet with it. I'm just going to switch to this one. And what you can do is start adding some fields. I'll just right click and delete this field. So what this does is this is basically like a little Excel table within a larger Evernote or database thing. So what I could do is create multiple Excel sheets on one page. That's really all it is. So if that confuses the heck out of you, just understand that I've got one Excel, two Excels, three Excels. Think of it like Excel tabs, but they're all separate. They're separate database structures, and you can link into them without as much complexity as Excel. It's actually a lot easier when you think about it. Okay, so let's kind of start out with long investments. I'm going to start configuring columns. So what I'll do is add my columns in the same way. So, you know, at the beginning, we're just going to kind of go slow and just to break it down so you understand the software. Later on, I'll speed things up. So I'll go ahead and add in a column. And here you can have a lot of column types. So there's text. And you can see there's a lot more in here. So you got text, number, select, multi-select, date, person, files, media, checkboxes, URL, email, phone number, and so many more fields that are more advanced over here, which we talked about the relationship area over here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go in and I will go in and create, in this case, we will go in and let's say I want to do date. And this is the date entry or entered. Okay, so this might be like my starting date. And what I'm going to do is start creating and adding some columns. So date entered, I could do date exit. Actually, you can also right click and duplicate. So this way you can go in and date exit, just change it to 2, and I'll delete this one over here. So now I've got date entered, date exit. Okay. Now you can also go in and say, let me change this next column to a number. I'll say shares. So if we're doing like, you know, shares, or we're buying shares, we'll go in and we'll do shares, the number of shares. So again, as I fill this in, let's go like 100 shares. I entered maybe on January 4th, date exit, let's say exited on the 13th. So now I've got some stuff working here. Okay. I've got some columns here that are starting to work. I'm going to zoom in on this just in case people later have trouble seeing this. So here I've got the shares. The next thing I might want to do is say, okay, well, what was the entry price? So again, I'll go to number, create a new column, go to the number. So I'll click that column, rename it, and I'll say price purchased. Okay, so this is a very simplistic kind of calculation here. US dollar, and let's say we purchased like $59.25. Now, if you want to do some more advanced stuff, similar to Excel, is let's say the cost. You add a column. What you could do is go to formula now, and we'll say total cost. And what you do is you just go the shares, and you click it, and it'll create this formula for you. It's like prop shares, and I just multiply it times price purchased. Done, and there it is. It gives me my number, and I'll just change it to US dollar. So now I've got that kind of set up. So it cost me $5,925 for 100 shares of this and this. Of what though? So we'll need to add another area here, and we can do, let's just do a select field. I'll move it over, and this will be our ticker. So this could be Disney. Hey Pokey. So let's say we got Disney. So now I've got a ticker, and I'm kind of building it out, as you can see. So what's cool about this is, like, let's say you got like 100 shares of this at $25, and then you got another 25 shares of that at $35, and now you've got your total cost at the bottom. What you could do is the sum, and you can see the total cost was $9,300. Average price that you're paying or getting stocks at was basically $39. And then the total shares that you have, you could say sum of 225, right? So you could do this for a different stock. So it could be like, let's say Microsoft, let's say Tesla, and so on. So you've got different companies. So now anytime you add a position into these, you could switch these around or tweak it. So I'm starting to kind of build this out. Now, one thing I want you to notice is what's interesting about this is how basically Excel works. And that's kind of a nice simplistic approach, but this has even more advanced things where when you open this up, you can start adding in some notes. So I could say, hey, I like this trade because of this. And then you could also add in pictures in here and a lot of other stuff. So like, let's say I go in and screenshot like a chart of, here, let's just do this one just real quick as an example. And I take a screenshot and I just paste it in. What it's going to do is kind of embed pictures, which is not something you can really do with Excel. And that's kind of a little bit of the power behind it. It's very similar to Evernote in that case. But now you've got kind of all the data here. And then you've also got some pictures, and you can add notes into it. So now anytime you open this, you can see there's a little icon here. Anytime you open this, you know that there's some extra data, and there is kind of the picture there. So I like to kind of configure fields in this view, and this makes it pretty powerful. So I can go in and now start adding in other things, like what are some things that you guys like to track? Then this is what you add in. You know, a lot of people would like to add in and look at, let's say like a closing price. So I start kind of brainstorming, like what are the things I want to go in, and I'll say closing price, and I'll just start adding them in, and later I'll change the fields. So the other thing you might want to add in is maybe duration in trade, or length of the trade, which you could see date entered and date exit, but we can create a formula for that. Other things you might want to consider is maybe, you know, your notes. Like let's say you have some notes, so, or issues or problems or why you got in. So a lot of people put in different things for different purposes. So, you know, it really comes up to you. It depends up to you of what you're trying to track. You might also look at the year. So let's say it's the year 2022. I put this in. You'll see why in a second. So it'll be the year. And then if you do tracking by month as well, you could do it that way, or quarter. Like I've seen people do it more in different breakdowns, but I'll just show you that as well. So month and year, okay. And then that way we can really start stemming things in different areas later on. So you'll see how we build that relationship out later. Okay, so what you might want to do here is go into the closing price, and this could be like a number. So closing price could be setup name, i.e. head and shoulders. Yeah, you could do a setup name like a setup, or why you got in. Again, this is for you. So, and you can do setup based on a drop down. So for example, if you go with select right here, so you could start putting in like head and shoulders. You could put in like break in support, break in resistance. It's kind of like why you got in. Triangle pattern, huge volume. So now anytime you do this, it's like, okay, I'm going in because I see a triangle pattern. But if a lot of those trades later on that you notice are not working, then you could easily say, okay, my triangle patterns are not working, then I probably want to eliminate that. And that's really the point of these trading journals. So yeah, you could do like stuff like a setup, like why you got in, or that kind of thing. Okay, so closing price, let's say it's 59. Now we'll go to like 65. There's our closing price. The other thing is we're looking at, let's say the next thing is add a property. Are you guys okay if I start picking up some speed? We'll start looking at closing price, total final cost. So now what we'll do is the same thing. So we'll go in and do a formula. And then what we're doing is closing price. And we multiply this by the shares. So you can see here now, 6,500, okay? So now you've got total final cost, closing price. Let's change this to also US dollars. And you can rearrange these as you can see. So date exit, if you want to put the exit stuff at the bottom, you could do that. If you want to put the entry stuff at the top, you can do that as well. Okay, so price purchase, then we'll go like date exit. We'll move this over here. Why we got in. There we go, triangle. Price purchase, closing price, shares, date exit, total cost, total final cost. And now what we could say is profit or loss. And we could say, okay, here we'll do again a formula. And we'll take the final cost minus the total cost. So let's just see if that comes up correctly. So there we go. And now we've got our profit and loss. And I'll rewrite it just so people understand what it is. Profit or loss. And you could also do this on a percentage basis too. Like if you want to do percent, you could say, okay, well, percent of this on top of that. So let's say profit or loss percent. And we'll do a formula. So now what you'll take is, and this is where it starts getting more confusing when you have a lot more fields. So we'll start looking at, okay, the profit or loss, and now we'll start dividing it by, what was our total cost, right? Because you're looking at the cost of the trade, total cost. So now your percentage is about 9% here. And you can change this to percent. So there you go, 9.7%. So there it is. Okay, profit loss 9%. Duration in trade is basically the difference between the two dates. And this one's a little more complicated. So if we look at, I think it's a date difference. I have to look it up always, Notion formula, just to be sure, because I don't use it that often. Once I have it set, then I go ahead and I'm good with it. But it's not something I use that often. So let's go back to formula here. And now we'll do, here it is. I looked it up real quick. You could just search for it online, like formulas, but it's date, I'll give it to you, date between, and then we'll do date between, date entered, and then comma, date exit, and it's based on the days, okay? And that should work. So it's 9, so actually I have to switch it. I have to change the formula from, this one is date exit, and this one is date entered in days. So there you go, 9 days in the trade. So you could put this kind of on the date exit, and this would update, like let's say this now goes into like the 15th then you got an 11-day trade or something that happens. So you kind of see, like, as you're building it out, you've got kind of a lot of cool stuff. And this is the title here that you have. So this is like your Disney long investment, or you could just say Disney long, let's say vertical spread, if you want to call it that. And that's just what it is right here. Now, if you notice, this creates kind of multiple lines. I like to turn that off. This is basically going into these 3 dots over here. And then what you do is you go from wrap cells to not wrap cells. And now I've got some space. Now, one annoying thing is this horizontal scroll, which I never like, but what you'll do is you'll tighten up some of these areas. Boom. And you got it kind of working right here. And this is what's great about this program, is similar to that is you can also do like the average profit and loss. Obviously, we have some dummy data there. But it allows you to just work with this and kind of move it around as needed. Now, here is kind of one setup that I have for this. Also, if you want to go in and make sure it's full width, so that also will now be full width on these edges over here on the left and right. If you want to start going into doing new journals, like this could be long investment trades, but what happens I find is you have different strategies. So you might have, so now what you can do is write notes on this. Let's just kind of move it around just to show you. So long investment ideas, and then I'm using a Control-Shift 7 to create kind of this drop down. So let's say they got Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, Tesla, and now I could kind of collapse this. So now what I can also do with this is I can create kind of another mini trading journal. So as I look at this trading journal, I could say my Iron Condor spreads. And now what I can do is set up another one like this. And what I could do is just duplicate this. I could just click these dots over here on that left side and just duplicate, or Control D. And what it's going to do is just going to duplicate all this stuff for me. So if I'm now looking to simplify my trading journal, this is one way of kind of doing it. Okay, so now I've got this one, and I got Iron Condor trades. So I've got different journals for different things, because I might want to track things a little different. And I would reset this up now and reconfigure it. So I'd open up this field, and I'm like, okay, I don't need any of this stuff as much. Maybe some things, but not everything. Okay, so what might I also need for the Iron Condor trade? I might not need the setup why I got in it, because with Iron Condors, you probably are just repeating it over and over again. So I could delete that property. Price purchased, it's not going to be a price purchased, it's really going to be a credit. So you're looking at, okay, credit now, and it might be like, you know, $1.55 or something, or $3.25. And then closing price will be, it could be now $4, and you're getting credit. So let's say you're buying it back at like $1.25. You don't need any shares anymore. You could do contracts, right? So this makes it a little simpler, because now you're compartmentalizing different strategies into different areas. So let's say you had 5 contracts. Duration and trade. This is a little different. What I like to do with these with these types of spreads with options is it's kind of date entered, date exit, but I also like to have a another field where days expiring, or date expiring. So this one's pretty handy. So let's say it expires like on this days, on February 4th or like February 25th. And what you could do is create a formula of how long until it expires. So you could do duration, but you could also do duplicate this property. So I'm going to change this duration in trade, but then we're also going to do days until expiration. Okay, so now we'll tweak this, and we can edit this formula. And I believe the formula is now, and let's see how many days that is, 3, and we do date entered till now, no, data expiring. until now. Let's check that. Okay, so 37 days till February 25th. Is that right? Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, there we go. So now if you want that formula, it's basically date difference or date between, date expiring, comma, now with double parentheses in terms of days. And now I can always see these, hey, what's coming up, what's expiring in that trading journal. So these are a couple of things right here that I've got. You could also say, like, let's say I get rid of some of this stuff. I mean, you might want to keep it, but just for now, for simplistic purposes, we'll just kind of get rid of it. Okay, so now what I'm looking for is, okay, I've got this, and I've got kind of an Iron Condor building out. Let's say this is Disney Iron Condor. Deltas entered. So you could start adding in some notes like deltas entered. And you could do it on the puts and calls, or you could just do it on the puts. You know, it just depends what you're trying to track. You could say, you know, do it by text and say, okay, like it might be like a 15 delta and a 10 delta. Or if you want to create formulas, hey, good morning, Rahit. If you want to do kind of like a formula for it later on, so you'd have to go in and say deltas, you'd have to isolate it, deltas puts, and then it would be like, let's say 15 on the puts. And I'll change this to a number. And then we'll just duplicate this property, delta calls. And this way you can say, okay, well, what am I doing as far as my deltas go? And now you've got yourself kind of like a little bit of insight of what type of Iron Condor you're doing, how many days until expiration. The problem with this one is it's going to keep changing. If you want to keep it kind of the same, you could just write in this number, so that way it's the same always, like days until expiration. Yeah, you're welcome, Leslie. And then but that's just another field, right? So now I've got kind of something with an Iron Condor. I've got like a $3.25 credit, and then I'm buying back maybe a $1.25. I've got this many contracts. You could also add in like other properties like stop point, and this would be, let's say, a stop of, it could be a dollar figure or it could be a delta figure, again, up to you. But now you've got kind of like, hey, where's my stop? Or max loss, if you want to do it that way. So if I've got max loss, I might also write in kind of a number. That way I know it's consistent. Like every time I do a Disney one, it's always going to be like 200. It's always 200 because I'm doing the same Iron Condor. I'm doing the same Iron Condor. And then we'll change it to dollar figure. So you're always then just kind of keeping an eye on, hey, am I hitting 200? Yes, no. Okay. If you're using more capital, you might do a little more of that. The other thing you could go in and add in is, let's say, total capital at risk, which is, I just call it risk, but you know, for the video purposes, let's say we're doing like a $5,000 spread. Okay. That's the capital at risk. Even though I'm willing to kind of risk, let's say 200, my total capital at risk is actually 5,000. Like if it goes to max loss. So, you know, you're kind of looking at this, okay, like, does that make sense as you do the trade? And then you're thinking about it, okay, what other factors do I want to have in there? So we kind of got it built out a little bit. So let's say I go in and let's just do one on AMD real quick, just to say, okay, we got 45 days. I'm going to build an Iron Condor now. And then let's just see, like, what are we kind of looking for? What other data might you want? You know, so here I might do like a 20 delta here. Okay, so I've got my credit. Okay, I've got my credit here. Here's my risk profile. You could also go in and add in like starting deltas, like if you want, right? Like if you want to put in these starting deltas and thetas and vegas, you could do that as well. So let's say you're looking at theta. That way you could calculate like your total theta between all of the positions that you'll have, which could be, let's say, $3.50 on the theta. So now we got US dollars. If you want the delta in there too, you could. And let me just put these numbers in a little more real. So let's go with 5 contracts, 1,680, 1,680. And then the stop might be, we're trying to make a 20. The stop might be, let's say 400. Okay, so here we go. Max loss, let's say 400. So now I've got a kind of a more realistic trade going. And then the credit's $1.64. Credit's $1.64. Closing price, let's say I'm trying to close it at, like, we're selling at this. We're trying to buy maybe, let's say, at $1.05. And I might have, like, let's say 5 contracts. Okay. So I've got some data in here now. And you can see, like, this starts to kind of add up a little bit. Like, once you start doing more and more entries, it kind of starts to make more and more sense. Now I'm going to show you how I can tie, like, certain databases together, which I talked about, kind of the year and dates and so on, and we'll start putting it a little bit more interesting way. So what you do here is I will create kind of another page here. This is just kind of to separate things out, and I'm going to move it back, and you'll actually be able to see it on here because it's on the bottom right there. And this is just, I'm going to go ahead and use this as a kind of as a data dump. And what we'll do is I'll call this data dump. And here's what's interesting about this is I'll go in and create a new table inline, and I will call this tickers. And this is the way I do it. And I'll just type in Disney. And this is then Netflix, Microsoft. Then we'll go in and go to, let's say, Facebook, Caterpillar, CMG. Okay, so I kind of have this now going. So I'll change the name to ticker, and I'll go back to my trading journal. So instead of using this ticker, we're going to start linking things together, and you'll see how you can do this also for the years. So I will add column to the right. I'm just going to call it ticker linked for now, and we'll change it to relationship. This confused the heck out of me, but what it's going to do is tie these two together. So one database will hold one and the other, and they're going to kind of just be married together. And I'm going to relate it to here, and we're going to call it ticker trading journal data dump. There it is. Create a relationship. So now what I can do is I can click it, and it can select, like, hey, this is the Microsoft one. And now I don't need this field anymore. Okay. So it's basically relationship now, database. And now when I go to this one and say, hey, I'm trading Disney, I put it here. I'm trading CMG, I click it here, and it's boom, 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 boom. It's really good. It ties it together. Hey, Karam. Hey, Sasha, please do a video on indicators like MACD, RSI, TradingView. Thank you. Yeah, I don't use TradingView as much, but we could do one on indicators later on. Right now, we're working on the Trading Journal. I appreciate the feedback. So we got kind of a relationship going on. And what's great about these is they do have columns here that you can add some icons. So if you're like looking at Disney, you could say, okay, I'm going to have like a mouse here. And then if I'm doing Netflix, you can add an icon, and it makes it more friendly if you're into that kind of thing, like popcorn and Microsoft, let's say a keyboard. Here we go. And now you've got some stuff going on. Facebook, let's say face. And then Caterpillar. See, excavator works. No. Digger. Dig. There we go. Digger. And then CMG, maybe Taco. There we go. So now when you go back into this, you can see they have like these icons here, which makes it, I guess, more fun. So as you start building out these positions, you just go in and start adding them in. You can also go in and create templates, so that way as you add it, it pre-fills some of this stuff. But I won't go into that. That's in this kind of new template. And you can also add views here, so that way you can quickly flip-flop. Actually, one of the things I use in mine, I'll show you what it is. It's active, and I just do a select on this, and it's either active or closed. And if I do active, it's just green. Closed, it's basically red. So now if I have a trade that's active, and I'm just going to duplicate this one real quick a couple times. Duplicate. Let's see if it'll keep my values. There it is. Can you later show the best way to organize it by date? Yeah, we could do that in a second. So now I've got a few of these, and I might have CMG here, and then this one, let's change this one to Netflix, this one to, and again, you don't have to pick up everything from this video. You can always rewatch it. It's just to give you an idea. So now I have active or closed trades. And what you can do here is, let's say I've got all these right here, different types of trades going. What I could do is add a view. So I could say active and create this view. And what we'll do is filter it. So there's the three dots over here, and there's a filter. I add a filter, and then active is active. So now I could flip-flop. This is the power behind this. This is what I like. I can go active, or then what I'll do is I'll duplicate this view, and then I can go in and change this one to closed, and then red. Let's say it's closed. There we go. So it's now closed view, active. You could see rocket, boom. So you can see it's very fun or gimmicky like that if you're into that kind of thing. Closed. So I'll click closed, and then I'll filter this, and I'll change it where it's closed. So now what I could do is go from closed. I could hop on over to active. Hey, what are my active trades? What are my closed trades? Let's create another view. Let's do date ending. So if I've got something like date ending, like let's say I was doing an option spread, or date expiring, so I could go ahead and create this view, and I could sort it by date. Let's say I don't have date expiring on this one, but let's say it was date exit, descending, and now I would have it here. So you could create the same views here on the Iron Condor trades, like date expiring, because we have a date expiring. But it allows you to like flip-flop the views. So I could go in here, go back to active, go back to closed, you know, go to date ending, and just quickly see everything. The data is like boom. Does Notion allow data dumps to be uploaded from Excel? Yeah, you can. There's a lot of import and export features. You can also copy and paste things. So if I was to copy and paste things in, you can do that fairly quickly as well. The problem with that though is you wouldn't be able to do like stuff like relationship databases like here that I've got, because this is just what makes it more powerful. So here's the other thing. Here, let's go to more of this data dump. So I'm going to go ahead and create, sorry, not create, I was thinking create, but it's table. And then we'll do year. So again, this is very simple. So now I'll type in year. And by simple, I mean we're making like simple little micro databases to link into those to tie them together. So year could be 2022, then year is 2023, and year of like 2024. Okay, and you know, you could go in, change it to, let me just change year globe. Okay, just do that. So I'll just duplicate, sorry. Let's see if I just do it quickly. 2023, 2024, and you kind of get where I'm heading with this, right? So delete this, and now we'll go into months. And this is where things get a little more complicated. So now we're gonna build in table with months. So this is months. And you could go with January. I like to go in like kind of like this, because then you can sort by, are you late tier? No, you just started at the beginning. Just go back up on your player and you can start out. But let's say I go in January like this, and we'll go in and I'll add the icon again here, and we'll do calendar. So here you go. All right, so now we'll duplicate a bunch of these, And we'll go in, and probably don't want to see me type all this stuff, so February, but just to get an idea. March, probably should have pre-done this, but you get the idea. February, March, April, okay, 05, and then you go to May. Sometimes manual labor is the way to go. May, June, and then we'll go to 07, July, 08, August. Then we'll duplicate it again. Why do I duplicate it? It's because then I keep the icon. So there we go, duplicate. I don't know why the duplicate didn't work. There we go. August, September, and you could abbreviate it like that if you want. September, October, November, and then we'll do kind of December, and that is it. You'll see what's going on here. Okay, so 12 December, 11. Sorry guys for the data entry here. Okay, so I've got it going on here. Why Notion instead of Excel? Because you know, we kind of talked about that at the beginning. Because if I go in here with Notion, you know, you could put pictures in. You can't do that with Excel. You don't have to. You could use Excel. It's fine. It doesn't matter. It's just showing people some other tools. You know, cloud-based. Yeah, you can interlink databases. You don't have to. You could use Evernote. But here's the power. Look what I got going on now. I've got my months. I've got my years into micro databases. And here's kind of, again, even if you're not into the programming side, here's what I wanted to show you at the beginning. Here's the year. So I'm going to change this to a relationship database now. And as you get better at this, you'll kind of get more and more familiar with it. So I've got a relationship. So now I'll go in and say, okay, this is for the trade year 2022. Okay. And then for the month, let's say, again, I'll add another relationship. And I'll change it to months, create a relationship. So this will be my months. So now what I can do, what's cool about this, we're going to see in a second. Let's say that trade was in July. This trade was in, not there, in September. And this trade was in March. That's in April. And this one is October. And we'll change one of these or two of these to like a different year as well. So let's say that's in 2023. This is in 2024. Okay. Let me just copy a few of these values here. Actually, see if I'll need to duplicate some in a minute, but okay. So we've got some stuff going on. So here is where the interesting part is when I go to my little micro databases, you could see the tickers here. And this is long investment right there. You can see it links those trades in right away. And that's really the power behind it right there. And then the years, like you could see all of that year. Again, we don't need to wrap cells. I've got all of those trades. We'll get rid of these tags. I got all these trades related to this. And I've got all of these on the month side right here. Again, I'm just kind of not wrapping the cells, related there. So what makes it really interesting now is what can you do with this? Well, what I could do is now organize by things that are in this month, at this year, what was my profit and loss? Because I can look it up based on a roll-up, based on a lookup, and so on. So here's kind of where things get really fascinating. So I can start combining this into reports. So you can start out with a table inline, and you can kind of start saying, okay, what about reports? So you have to start looking in, okay, go in, create a relationship database. And I know this is probably beyond a lot of people if you're not familiar with Notion, because Notion is confusing as heck. But just to give you a concept of like, hey, how does this all work? So I could select now year of, let's say, 2022. Okay, and now what I can do is go in and also, just as a simple way, let's look up a roll-up field. Okay, so this is a roll-up field. And what you can do with a roll-up is select an existing relationship. So we've got a year, and we can calculate, you can count the values. So how many do we have in 2022? How many do we have? I mean, that's a simple kind of thing. How about in 2023? How many trades do we kind of have? And it allows you to kind of see that real easily, but you'll be able to do the same thing with like profit and loss. So there's 22, 2023, 2024. Okay, so it should kind of combine it here. But the point is you start being able to kind of transform this data into a lot of different things. So let's see, relationship to reports. Let's do this one. Count, show unique values, show original. Let's count. Let's see if we've got 2023. Let's go back to 2022. I see, because there's 2022. Let's make them all 2022, just to, that's how I think, is just kind of, woo. Sometimes it just count 2022, 2022, 2022. Is that sometimes you got to play with this data just to make sure everything's lining up properly. Because it's maybe counting like unique values, and I don't have like unique values, right? Because this is a Disney. The other one I've got is like a Microsoft. So okay, let's just see if we change this up. Microsoft, CMG, then we got Caterpillar, and I got Netflix, and Disney. Okay, so now let's go back to this data dump, and you could do like reports as well with it. Okay, so now we'll go in and we'll do a roll up, and we will go into the year. Actually, first let's check the year. See, these are all in the different months. Here's all are related to year. So year, items and trades. There we go. So all those in 2022. That seems to be working well. So what we can also do, actually, we could actually roll up in this year, just not even worry about it. We'll hide this column for a minute. We could just go in and find P&L, and we will go in and roll that up. Relationship, and this will be in long investments. Select an existing relationship to reports, years, and trades. Name, so there it is. So now we'll look at, let's say, profit and or loss, and we can, let's just say the max. And you could say the max profit and loss was 575. So this is kind of cool. It's like max P&L out of all of those, right? So this is where you start duplicating and you start getting reports, is max minimum, or let's say max loss. This is max profit, because now you start getting some really cool calculations on those reports. And then the minimum, negative 2,500. This is where the power comes in. Let's see, what other thing do you want to do? Average P&L. And then, actually, let me just duplicate this. Average P&L. Let's see, property already exists, average P&L. So average P&L 2. Delete this one. And we'll change average P&L here, configure the roll up, and now we'll do kind of like the average. So you can see you're kind of at a loss. But now you can see the power behind this is now I have a report specific for the year 2022. Now here's, again, what's cool about this is I could do it based on a month, because I've tagged it on the month. I could do it based on that month. So I could do it at the end of the year. So I could say, hey, what are my monthly? So let me move this whole database table down. So I could look at things on a shorter term view and say, okay, let me look at this on a month-to-month basis. and see what the profit and loss is, the max loss, average P&L. I could count how many trades I've done. So there's a lot of great things you could track. I'll tell you, I don't track as many things as some people want to. I make it kind of simple, but it's really, the point of this is just to give you a bird's eye view of like, hey, you want to see the bigger picture, you want to see an in-depth visual. What is it that you want to see? And that's what you make your trading journal about. Now, this is more complex, right? So all this linking into this other database is more complex, but you can see we've done it, and we've got max profit, max loss, average P&L, and you could now hop in and go in back here. Here's your trading journal. You kind of do this. So let's say we go in and we'll delete a few of these trades because these are kind of empty. But let's say I start out kind of a new, I'll create a new template. So this is my template, my setups. If I'm typically doing like huge volume trades right here, and I'm typically doing like, let's say 250 shares. And then my month for now is, let's say, in August, and my ticker, just going to define it as Facebook for now. It's active, and my year is typically, let's say, 2022. Okay, so I'm basically redoing some of this stuff. So now I've got a template. So as I go with the template, so I've got, let's say, Facebook. I'll enter it. I entered it here. I purchased it at, I don't know, 250. Closing price, let's say 325, date exit, let's say on that date, which is obviously in the future, costs, and so on. So now you can see profit, loss, notes, month. This we don't need anymore because we did that as a linking relationship. And now I've got one trade done. Okay, so let's go into the next one. Make a new template. Then we'll go in, and this one we'll do, I think, Netflix, date entered. Let's say it was here. Price purchased, let's just make it like $55. Closing price, let's say $58 or $59. Shares, I'll leave it 250. Date, exit. There we go, that's fine. 5 days in the trade. Cost me 13, made it, oh, wow. Profit loss $1,000 even. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, so there we go. Ticker, I'll change it to Netflix now. There it is. And now I've kind of got building out my trading journal. And now if I go back to the data dump, I can see, hey, now my max profit, max loss, you know, actually this one's probably not configured properly, but you can see all of these. Whoops, not relationship, roll up. Oh yeah, it is max loss is 1,000 because I deleted those other ones. If I had a worse trade on here, because I'm thinking, why didn't it shouldn't it be lower? Because last time we had a lower number. But if actually this was now, let's say $45, I should be at a $2,000 loss, or let's make it like $30. I should have a $6,000 loss. So I'll go back to the data dump. And I'll just check, yeah, so my max loss is there, my most profitable trade is there, and it gives you an idea of like, hey, this look. Could you just keep it simple in just this view? Yeah, and then as you're trading throughout the day, you just like look at the active ones, and you might say, okay, because this is the way I do it, it's just kind of like active, okay, and then I might open things up and say, okay, well, what did I close it at? And then it fills things in for me. Or what's my profit and loss? I just type that in and I'm done. I don't really, all of this is already preset, and then I'll switch this to closed, and that's it. That trade is now gone. Once I'm done with this one, you know, fill it out, profit and loss or whatever it is, and then it's done. Same thing, and then boom, you've got all closed, and then you can check all your closed positions and then do a summary from here if you like. The problem with this is sometimes filtering as you get into like the different months is a little more complicated. If you want to do more reporting and tracking, if you do like a lot of trades, like for me personally in my live account, actually I don't have it on this one, but I think I did like already in a live account, right? This is my live account. I have a couple different accounts. I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000 trades. So I think in this one, this is like the paper account, which I use for just the coaching and mentoring. And with this one, let me see how many trades I did. And I'll have to go back last year. And I'm talking actually about last year, right? Not this year, because this year is, sorry, I didn't mean like, I didn't mean 2022, or or this, whatever this year is, 2022, right? So in this account, what did I do? How many trades? 2021, that one to that one. And then let's see the number of trades, order history. Do they let you? Trade history. I don't know if they even show it. Let's see, just on the SPY. I don't know if the paper platform is not doing it. 350, max is 370. There, how many transactions? I don't know, it's not showing it. Anyway, I know I do a couple thousand trades a year easily. So anyway, point being is there's just like you look at these trades, like there's just a ton of trades all over the place. And I'll typically do like one lots and so on. Let's clear this. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, so if you do a lot of trades, the logging makes it very complicated. So make it really simple for you. So that's why I don't track as much, because I'll do it off the account statements very quickly. But you know, you can get in as much depth as you like it, right? For somebody who's very analytical, then in that case, you know, you might want to take it really deep. But remember, you don't want to get into analysis paralysis. You got to do the trades. So even like on this account here, if you look at this activities and positions, I got a ton of stuff here going on. And today was kind of a nasty day for me, right? From this paper account. This is a paper account. But even then, I look at it, it was a bad day. Because it's got a lot of long positions, which I use for coaching because most people are long. And even then, I still placed in 3 trades here to, like, you know, get some puts. I close out some positions, that kind of stuff. So, but even then, it's not doing well. But to do a bunch of these trades in a logbook, especially if you're doing like 10, 20, 50 trades a day on average, it can be really daunting and problematic. So you have to recognize how much time do you want to spend with this, and are you going to actually use it to that benefit beyond that. So anyway, I hope this helps and opens you up to kind of just doing some logging. The point is really understanding, like, what do I do with this data? And that's where sometimes like these notes fill in is really nice. So as you do like a trade, you're like, okay, got out too early because I was scared, which means I took on too big of a position. So next time trade smaller, not maybe 250 shares, maybe 100 shares. Need a bigger stop, right? The other thing is went in all 250 shares in one day. Should have spread out 100 or like, let's say 50 shares across 2 to 4 weeks, right? So you kind of start thinking about these things is that later when you review all these things, it's like you go back on a month-to-month basis. You don't have to look back at it all the time. But if you start noticing, like again, should have spread out my position, should have traded less shares, should have been more patient, or should have, let's just say, waited longer. Now, if you start seeing, okay, spread out my positions, and then again, spread out my positions, and you see like consistency here, and then you also see like another thing, got out too early because too big and maybe should have traded less shares. You'll start seeing patterns like this and you're like, man, I'm trading too big and I'm not spreading out my positions. That's kind of the whole point behind this logbook. Yes, it's fine to track your profit and loss, but you could get that from the account statements. The better thing to really look at is kind of like these notes, maybe based on the losing trades that you might have, the losing or winning trades you have. It's like, oh, the ones that are winning well, you're doing this on. The ones that then you press those a little harder. The ones that you're losing on, you might say, okay, well, if I'm doing this, and it's all the same, then I probably want to make some tweaks and changes to that. So anyways, this is how I would really look at it and use it. And I look at it as kind of like round 1, round 2. So it's like round 1, you know, so it's like the first 10 trades, like 10 trades. Then after these 10 trades, learned that I trade too big in at one time. So now round 2, what are you going to do for round 2? Trade less shares. So now instead of, you know, aiming to trade 100 shares, instead of the normal 500 I do, then okay, if that works, great. Then what you do is you go ahead and now tweak round 2. Okay, round 3, not taking profits into strength, working on taking profits into strength. Because what a lot of people do is, this is what I see in coaching and mentoring, is that often people, what they go in is they try a strategy, like let's say it's, I'll just say Iron Condor. And they do a few Iron Condors. And what they might have is like a winner, a winner, a winner, and then it's a loser, 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 winner, loser, loser, winner, loser, loser, and then they kind of give up because they're like losing a few here and losing a few here, and they say, this doesn't work. When in fact, if you look at the basket of trades, it worked in some cases. It didn't work in some cases. So now how do you fine tune some of these losers? Like, what was kind of the issue? And what do we do for the next round or step 2, right? It's kind of like if you're playing tennis or golf. Like, look, you're not going to have a perfect stroke. You're not going to have a perfect whack at the ball right away. You know, it takes time. Okay, so you fine tune it, you do like these micro tweaks. So here we need to kind of take our basket and what do we do the next 10 or 15 trades? And then we do an adjustment or tweak our strategy. But instead what people do is they go with Iron Condors, they do this kind of thing. Oh, it doesn't work. Let me hop into day trading. It doesn't work. You know, like they'll have some successful trades, then they'll have some failing trades, and then they'll hop into, excuse me, penny stocks or something else. Then that doesn't work, or it does work. You know, again, you get the same like win, win, lose, 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 win, win, lose, lose, win, lose, win, and then they give up. And then they go in and they hop into like, you know, verticals or options or something like that. So they'll hop around. And then the cycle actually comes back full circle and then they start the process again. So that's the point of this trading journal is you look at like round 1, round 2, round 3. And it's like, what are you trying to improve? And as you get like this huge accumulation of trades, it gives you some data points of the things you might want to work on personally in your own strategy within yourself. Not everybody has to trade huge or large. The point is just to kind of keep evolving the things you're doing. And you can see here in this basic portfolio, I've got a lot of stuff going. Like, look, sometimes these things work, sometimes those things work, sometimes these things work. Like, they don't all work all the time at the same time. So at certain times, like, these things will work, other times these things will work. And that's why if you know, have a few things going, it's a lot better than just having like, you know, 3 stocks, putting all your money into those positions being long only, and that's it. You know, or buying like, you know, I did the video the other day, GME, people hated that video. This was on my Critical Charts channel and everybody dislikes that video because, you know, I mentioned that GME is kind of going down. I'm just looking at the charts and I'm just saying, look, it's acting weak. But people didn't like that because you have a lot of investors. What they do is they go in and they say, hey, this stock is going to go up. I got like, you know, all my money in GME, and they look at it. And I think the video that I made was like just right here when it's starting to break this, I said it's going down, it's acting weak, and they hate it. Like a lot of people hate it because a lot of people get in all their money. They put it all in like this one Goldilocks stock and it just doesn't, if it's not panning out, they don't like it. And for you, what I want you to do is to really think better of like, look, how do I spread my money around into this area, this area, this area? So yeah, I've got some long investments. But then, okay, what about my Iron Condor set of trades, right? I'm making money from Iron Condors. What about my vertical spreads? What about my hedges? So how am I spreading my money into different areas? So pick what things you know and start building around it. Like if you're building a business, if I sell like meat, fish, let's say tomatoes, bananas, apples, milk, cheese, you know, like where's the money coming from? So if I'm running a grocery store, if I'm not doing really well on the fish and people don't buy my fish, I want to eliminate it, right? So if you've got a few strategies, money's going to come a little bit from this, from this, from this, from this, from this, from this, and that's all you're trying to do. And if you've got like a few strategies, then use them. If you got like just even 3 strategies, just do those, you know, set up like 3 baskets. And then you got some money coming in from here, 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 and now you're starting to build an arsenal of trades, a variety, a group of trades. And you might have some long investments where you just own the shares outright, which is totally fine. Even though, you know, I talk a lot about options on the channel, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also nothing wrong with just owning long stock and long shares. And you might then do another covered call strategy against other things. Again, very simple. You might do some more other things like non-directionals, like iron condors. And if you have more knowledge, you could do other stuff like butterflies or calendars, or, you know, start creating other strategies for different things and start building onto them, right? And that's what you're trying to do is like, look, I've got these different product lines in my business, just like I would with a grocery store. And then I'll tweak it. Like, look, if people aren't buying my flounder fish, excuse me, my flounder fish, then I might want to go ahead and get more crab meat or lobster or something and see if that sells. And people really don't buy a lot of it, then maybe I need to find a different distributor, do things differently, replace the fish area with something else. But point is, I'm just constantly tweaking. So anyway, I hope this helps. Truly appreciate it. Thanks for joining me, guys. We've been here for a little while now. And I don't want to keep you up too late. Current time is what, 22:28. So yeah, so we're kind of a little bit more past the general kind of video. We've been here for a little while, but if you have any questions, just post them in right now. I'll answer them real quick, and then we'll kind of call it a night. Hey Sasha, hey Dimitri, how you doing, Dimitri? Why iron condors are not able to sell with a profit? Premium just expired. I'm not sure I understand the question, Dimitri. Why iron condors are not able to sell with a profit? Premium just expired. Can you be more specific, Dimitri? Iron condors, you normally sell and then you buy back later. There are things where you could do gamma iron condors, like let's say you just need stock movement, which I actually did in my live account for a little while. It's like a hedging position, but let's say you're doing something like on, here, we'll just use AMD again, because I have that iron condor already, but you do an iron condor like this and you just need movement. The problem with this a little bit is you've got negative time decay, which most people don't understand, but you need movement beyond the expected move. And if you got a crazy market, these are pretty good to have. Yeah, you're welcome, Steven. Casimir, yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Pablo, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks guys for joining me. Good shout out to you guys as well for sticking it with me live, doing something a little bit different, more technical stuff. Could you go over quickly organized by date? Yeah, so if we go organizing by date, you could sort things by date depending on like date entered, date exit, days in trade. You could do it kind of on this main screen, which I use the filter right here. So you can just sort it and then it'll just sort it by that, right? So, sorry, filtered, that's the filter. You can just sort it right here. So there is the sort, and you can sort this by date, and you can choose which one, date entered, date exit. You know, if you wanted to do it on the iron condors here, it would be sort by, and then here we have, let's see, date expiring. So you could sort it by that, right? So if we had a date expiring, I could sort it this way. And that way I could see my most recent ones or upcoming expirations. So that's one way of doing it. You can also actually do a view for it by calendar. So this is kind of cool. So you can see, hey, when are things expiring? When are things, you know, coming up? So you could actually look things up like that, like, and just switch kind of your field, calendar by date entered or date exit. Like you could have it that way. So that's another view you could have. So that's pretty cool. There's also a timeline view. This one is a little more paid feature. I think you could have like up to 2 or 3 of them. But what it does is it kind of gives it to you on the current, right here, like today's date versus like where you are now. So if you like the timeline view, that's also another way of doing it. So I hope that's kind of what you're looking for, Steven, is there's a lot of views that you can create, you know, and even, let's see, they did another one not too long ago. let's do a board view. So you could look at it like this, but a board view can also be turned into, let's see, by date. So what you can see here is last 30 days. They could do it like 20 days, 10 days, you know, it switches. So there's a lot of ways you can work with date. Hey, any tips on option trading? I have a mix of really good trades, but a few have flopped as well. Hey, Diary of a Wimpy Gamer Girl. It's tough to say. There's a lot of tips, a lot of videos in this channel that you could look at for free. So tips are kind of useless unless you kind of build around it, kind of your own strategies and work through it. So, you know, spread out I would say one of the biggest things that I see most people doing wrong is they don't spread out their capital enough. They concentrate too heavily into one area, like the one stock, or I gotta buy it, or they get too emotional. That's why for me, when I look at certain things and I plan out like a stock, or I talk about it, I'm like, it doesn't matter to me what it is. It's just a 3-letter, 4-letter ticker symbol. That's kind of part one. Number two is a lot of people, they trade too big. They trade too big for what they're comfortable with. They think they're comfortable with the risk, but they just trade too large for what they should. For example, I invested in Netflix options to go up around the time lock-in started me, but I also did FedEx around Christmas and it really flopped. What did you do with options? You're not really specific. You probably bought single calls or puts. And most people that buy singles just lose out, because we've talked about this actually in the Rocket strategy for those of you guys that have been around. I'm going to guess you bought like singles. And I talk a lot more about single options in this class because a lot of people go wrong with trading singles. I would definitely check this out. Tell me what you did with the Netflix thing. But what people don't get when they trade singles, you know, you see all these other, I hate to say it, other YouTubers and people saying buy a single of this and that. And a lot of them don't understand what they're doing. They're just guessing on it. But when you look at this you have to look at just the bid and ask spread versus the strike and versus the current price. Like most people think, like when I pull this up, the options and theories, and I look at, let's see here. I've got the delta, right? There's the delta. No, I already have the delta. Okay, so when I look at this here, the probability here, probability of in the money. So people look at these probabilities, single call, yeah, I should make some changes then. Yeah, you're buying singles, but what people don't get is, look, you bought single calls. And if you buy one even, let's say right here, look, this is what people don't get. They buy a single call, they think this is a 42% chance of success, but it's not. It's this, plus you have to pay the premium. So think about it. To break even on a 520, look at this. This is what people don't get, is right away, my break even is 510 plus the premium, which is actually 548. So 510 to 548. So think about it. It's baked in about $38 of premium in there. Okay, where's that 38 come from? Look at it right here. Or 28, sorry, right here. There it is, $28 of premium baked in, right? So when you look at that break even, 548, 38. Yeah. So the premium is baked in. That's number one. Number two is you've got a huge volatility. So even if this thing skyrockets, remember when it skyrockets, the volatility goes down. So when I bring in the volatility and I take this volatility and I bump it down, let's say like, let's just go 6 points. Boom. I'm automatically losing 6%. Or 6 points times 81, 6, 8, 48. 48, there it is. It's almost about that. Plus, I'm losing $23 a day. So most people just don't get how to trade single options. I mean, that's just a fact of, you know, people start with singles because they see a lot of videos on it, but they just don't get it. I would check out this, like if you want to really learn to trade singles, start with, you know, kind of a course like this, or really just the option basics. You can check it out on the website Rise to Learn, but most people they burn through capital. I see these theta numbers like in the 500s. I've seen it in the, 3,000, where people are losing like $3,000 a day and they don't have nothing to hedge. There's nothing wrong with losing $3,000 a day on theta if if you're selling premium against it. So that's the way you would do it. And that's what we talk about kind of in the course. But anyway, yeah, so, all right. I truly appreciate you guys sticking with me. Thank you so much. Hope you guys are doing well this week. Market's kind of toasty. It's going to be great to put on some trades soon, but not yet. We've got a lot of earnings here coming up, and there's a lot of issues with these earnings. So I will tell you, a lot of earnings will probably sell off, even if the earnings are good, and that's kind of what's happening as I pull things up. If you look at stuff like even the banks, I actually started shorting some more stuff on. I mean, look at this. Like, this is nasty, right? So if we get pops, just as a tidbit away from trading journals, if we get a pop, it'll be a shorting opportunity more than likely. I will think that the bigger traders will start shorting the market again a second go if you get a pop. So I don't think this run is over anymore. We did have a A to B, B to C, C to D kind of pattern that's being created. This pattern is already breaking down. The volume's picking up. So if this 450 doesn't hold, that's going to be problematic. It could bounce soon. I don't know if it's going to bounce here or there. Like, I don't know if these are the points, but when it does bounce, that'll be a shorting opportunity, I think, for a lot of people. So be careful on those bounces. Don't get too caught into the euphoria, because we are starting to, like, if I look at my chart, we're rolling over on the 21 day, we're rolling over on the 8 day. We're rolling over on this moving average on the 89, which is near the 200. I mean, we're rolling over. Like, if I look at some of my, we're starting to get to this extension where we should start seeing at least a bounce, at least a counter trend bounce, but it could roll for, like, we'll see if this thing holds right here. This is 450 is going to be a huge marker for sure. I'm still kind of learning how to see patterns in different stock markets. I try to use common sense, like credit card companies hire a lot for Christmas and stocks go down due to labor costs. Yeah, fundamentals don't apply if you're dealing with less than 60 or 90 days. The stock market doesn't correlate to fundamentals, which most people are trained to. In human behavior, a lot of people are trained to think because of this is the reason, or why. A lot of people are thinking for the why, because this is the typical gossip concept that we normally go through in high school, in regular school. But the market doesn't work that way. There could be a whole mix of reasons of why. If that is your reasoning of why, then that's fine for your own personal justification, as I always tell my coaching and mentoring people. But all that is irrelevant. It does not matter, because there could be any trader in the world that just decides, hey, I need to just dump the shares or stock, and it just moves against you just because of that reason, because they decided that they needed to dump the shares. Fundamentals matter on more, when you look at fundamentals, they matter more on a 1+ year time horizon. Otherwise, when people are in a panic, they will dump the shares when they're scared. And then in that case, fundamentals don't apply. When they're panicked, when they're scared, they're dumping. They don't care what the fundamentals are until they are like so far sold off. They'll look at fundamentals rationally overnight or something and say, okay, I probably should buy some of that stock. But other than that, in a panic market, down, like, charts, price action, that's all they care about, pricing. Fundamentals matter more if you're planning to hold that stock for like a year or more. And that's where the charts and pricing will always dominate or trump any fundamentals. Otherwise, good charts, as I always say, have good stock charts usually have great fundamentals, and great fundamentals usually have great stock charts. They go hand in hand. Great charts, great fundamentals, great charts. They work hand in hand. But when people are in a panic, the price will always dictate. And remember, it's always price that comes first, then the news. So better to start patterns, what actually happened to influence it. Yeah, chart patterns are more helpful, but if you're dealing with options, you're looking at more probabilities. Charts are just another way for choosing and deciding kind of, hey, when to pull the triggers and that kind of thing. There's a lot that goes into this depending on how you like to trade, but if you're doing things based on fundamentals, you need to be looking at holding that position for a year or more. If you're dealing with technicals, then you could look at technicals 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 50 minutes, 5 years even, or 1 year or 3 months. But with option side of things, usually you're trading options less than 150, 200 days. So if you're dealing with that, then you're looking at probabilities of success. So you're looking at kind of deltas, strategy, cutting losses, that kind of stuff, and just repeating strategies over and over again. Looking at an aggregate of sequence of positions, because you might have like a win, 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 but loss, loss, win, win, loss, 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 win, loss. And you have to look at this whole aggregate of positions that in total, out of, let's say, 20 trades, I might have won like 12 out of 20. And you can only get that after looking at that sequence. So anyway, all right. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of the week. Good luck. I'll probably post some more chart videos here coming up on the Critical Charts channel. If you're brand new, go to YouTube, and then you can go to, I think it is Critical Charts. So I post a couple different charts on here, just right here, and you can kind of see a handful of things here specific to different stocks, and just all technical. It's all technical, non-biased type of stuff. Just like, what are the technicals say? And that video that people hate, I'll show you right here. They just don't like it. And it's just like, they love it. They love GME, but they bought that dip, right? 3 days ago, went in all GME on Friday, bought the dip. And then, well, you guys know what it's trading at. So anyway, all right, take care.